So, Henry IV, Emperor Henry IV, was belligerent and resistant to these attempts by Pope Gregory VII to end lay investiture. He openly provoked him and refused to obey, at which, because of this, Gregory VII excommunicated him. And excommunication carried with it the release of all subjects from obedience to an excommunicated Catholic prince or king, even emperor. So Henry IV grew quite nervous, and he sought reconciliation, going to Pope Gregory VII's winter residence in Canossa and standing in the snow to beg forgiveness. Gregory VII grants this to him, but in no time Henry IV has reneged on all of his promises and is returned to the open installing, and investing is perhaps a better word, investing bishops, abbots, particularly bishops, with the insignias of that ecclesiastical power, the ring and the crosier. Gregory VII re-excommunicates him, and this time Henry IV is not going to ask for another pardon. He is going to go after Gregory VII, and he attacks Rome, and Gregory VII has to call on the Normans in southern Italy to come up to his rescue, and in the process of the Normans breaking the siege by the imperial forces, the local Romans get quite sick of the plundering that's going on in their city, and they drive not only the Normans out, but Pope Gregory VII as well. And Pope Gregory VII dies in Norman territory, not even in Rome, looking as if he's been a complete failure. All of his reforms have been are currently being flaunted by the local rulers. There does not seem to be a lot of progress on the reforms that he wants to set in place, but they will, over the next couple generations, sink roots and begin to spread. He is a sower of the seeds of reform, and often in our life we can be asked to do those things in faith that will only bear fruit long after we're gone. And Gregory VII is at one who suffered for righteousness and has been rewarded for it. But this process of the emperors intervening in the life of the church and trying to pressure the Pope into doing what they want the Pope to do, takes on an added dimension at this time in the late 11th century. Emperor Henry IV manages to have one of his followers, named Antipope, for a brief period in 1080, and then when Pope Gregory VII dies. And so there is this competing two popes, both claiming to be the rightful successor. The consistory of cardinals, all pointing to the actual successor, and then Henry IV, and at times certain princes in Scandinavia backing the anti-popes. And Henry IV will continue to do this throughout most of his life, the rest of his life. His son Henry V will do this through much of the first quarter of the 12th century, 1100s, and then later in that century, Frederick Barbarossa, the Redbeard, Frederick I, the Holy Roman Empire, will also intervene and naming his followers as Pope and having two claimants for the papal throne. One final note on other things that happened during these 2.5 centuries is the great schism between East and West. As you have undoubtedly noticed in previous lectures, the communion between East and West is something that was continually renewed, but then with each new popular heresy, there was a breaking of communion again. The language division grew worse over time. The political ties severed over time. And by the 11th century, when the Great Schism occurs, there is not a great deal binding. There is the faith, but the bonds of charity are quite weak. The Eastern Empire, the Byzantine Empire, began to see its revival, or its renaissance, that initiated in the 800s, had have reached their peak in the mid or early part of the 1000s, or the 11th century. With the death of Emperor Basil II, there wasn't a